The Hogsty is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsty.com.
By fans, for fans, the Hogsty. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another week's episode of the Hogsty as we plow through this off-season. Steve, it's just you and me, so it's going to be a duo show, not a solo show. Solo show would be awful if we had to do that.
We could do a solo show. We've never gotten to that point yet.
No.
We are. Sean happens to be missing in action, and
Jamal was out at a friend's house, it sounds like. Steve,
and we told him we didn't want to wait for him.
Right.
Here we are.
Real quick, how was your 4th of July? Did you eat enough hot dogs with plain mustard or whatever you do?
I didn't have a single hot dog, actually, weirdly enough. You know, I'm usually in favor of as many hot dogs as possible, and I think I could probably compete on the Nathan's Hot Dog Challenge, but I did not do that this year.
Random thing,
it was fairly quiet.
Random thing I saw online. Apparently, some doctor did like a test on one of those hot dog competition guys right afterwards, and it said that your blood actually gets thicker from the amount of crap that you just put in your body.
Your blood gets thicker?
Yeah, like paint.
I mean, in all seriousness, how do you eat 74 hot dogs and not die?
Yeah, I don't know.
Honestly.
I mean, I ate about that much in ribs and burgers and hot dogs over the 4th of July myself.
Not in 10 minutes.
No,
though.
not in 10 minutes, and that was over 8 hours. You know.
I don't know how those guys do that.
Either.
I really don't. First of all, it's gross.
Yeah.
Nothing grosses me out, but I mean, it's pretty gross to eat that much. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they don't throw up. I don't know how they don't die of a heart attack. It's pretty amazing.
It is. I mean, I think you do that and you don't eat for the rest of the year. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, and that Joey Chestnut guy's just slaughtering everybody in that competition. There's nobody that can touch that dude. He's the Wilt Chamberlain of hot dog eating contests.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's it's insane. It really, and when I lived in Philly, a lot of these food competitions happen in Philly. I never wanted to go up to one of them. It just sounded gross to me. Ugh.
Well, I told you nothing grosses me out, really, so I could watch it, but I don't know. And there was big controversy with that, because there was another guy named Kobayashi.
Yeah, I remember.
Who was better than Chestnut, and something happened, and Kobayashi doesn't do it anymore for some reason. There was
probably died.
Drama in the hot... No, he didn't. There was some, personal drama or legalities drama or rules drama. Something happened.
No performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah, it makes your mouth move faster or something. No, it was something happened, and Kobayashi is not welcome back there anymore. It's so there's drama in the hot dog eating contest.
I did not know that.
If somebody out there remembers what happened to Kobayashi,
get at us.
Let me know, because I'm really curious.
Yeah. Well, okay, so speaking of what happened, we have a couple former Redskins, that have what happened to these guys stories in the news
Knuckleheads in
this
the news.
week.
Knuckleheads in the news.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking last week how, hey, it's great how the teams stayed out of trouble, on the guys who are on the roster. Guys who are off the roster, not so much, because we had 2 in 1 week. I don't know who you want to get to first. Let's do Barry Cofield first, because this is, the worst of the 2 stories, in my opinion.
Yeah, Barry is not. This is less knucklehead and more awful.
Yeah. So Barry Cofield, former, what was he, a defensive tackle during the Gibbs era, good guy, good player, made a good living, but apparently now in Florida he's going to be spending some time in prison, I'm going to guess, because he fell asleep behind the wheel. A cop woke him up. He panicked, hit the cop's car, had heroin on him. It sounds like it was a big old mess, and he's got a lot of charges against him, Steve.
Well, yeah, I mean, he the most serious of which, beyond the heroin, is assault of a police officer.
Right.
To me, if I was Mr. and Mrs. Cofield, yes, I'd feel really bad and sorry and awful. And
Sure.
I don't think there's a such thing as a recreational heroin user.
No, I think, I'm pretty liberal about drug use in general in my life philosophy, but I don't know of many people who use heroin just casually.
Yeah, I mean, see Nikki Sixx, and,
Yeah.
Slash, and a bunch of these guys. So my guess is he's probably an addict.
Yeah.
Do I think if I was the Cofield family, I think it's very sad. But because I'm not the Cofield family, I hope he goes to prison for a long time. What a ridiculous story. I mean, the dude had it all. NFL guy, made a ton of money, and you're going to waste your life on heroin?
Right.
I have not one iota of sympathy for something so stupid. And then, you ram a cop car on top of that. I mean, my guess is that the dude is going to see prison time.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
That doesn't strike me as something you can plead out of a lot, but that's a lot of stuff to plead out of. So he's going to go to jail for some period of time.
Now, the assault on the cop
we'll
was
see.
because he hit the car, I assume. He didn't punch anybody or anything.
No, yeah, well, he rammed a cop car,
Right.
apparently.
And that's what they're calling
with
the
his
assault,
car.
I think.
Which is assault,
Yeah.
in fact. So, yes. I mean, but you're not going to get away from possession of heroin and assaulting a cop.
Right.
All of that and get off with, probation. That's not
driving
gonna
under the
happen.
influence, I assume's in there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, he's in Florida, not California. If he was in California, he'd be in jail for 3 days. But, he's in Florida, so...
Yeah, he's probably going to spend some time in prison and then in rehab for the heroin.
Barry's going to figure out how fat people look in stripes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're slimming. I can tell you that from experience.
You're not 300 pounds, so...
No. I mean, 225 at my worst. But, and it was a fat 225. I never was in shape. So
Neither was Barry,
no,
so...
That's true. Yeah, but that's rough, man. He made a good... I remember he was one of the higher played defensive tackles we had for a while. So he
was.
He made a good living. That's just a shame.
If you guys want to look this up, the New York Post has a good article on it. It says Super Bowl giant busted with heroin after alleging ramming cop from July 6, 2018. If you want to have a chuckle, they have his mugshot there.
Not looking good?
Doesn't look he doesn't look happy.
No. All right, well, let's move on to another incident, and I think this also happened in Florida. Stay out of Florida, people. Former Redskin for about a cup of coffee, Jabbar Gaffney. He also looks like he'll be in some trouble because he went to former NFL quarterback Lito Shepherd's house and destroyed his car.
See, this is a knucklehead story.
Yeah, $14,000 worth of damage, slashed all the tires, put something in the gas tank. Can we just assume pee? Because that's what everyone always assumes, right? You pee in the tank?
I knew a kid who used to go around putting sugar in people's cars. So.
Oh, okay. Sugar? Yeah, that sounds like the kid way to do it.
And for the record, I did not do that.
Not
I knew
you.
a kid who did
you
that.
You knew a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. This was in high school.
This is not like, the mobster, I knew a guy thing. Steve just knew a guy.
Yeah, I think those of you who know me knew I would not put sugar in a car. But I think sugar ruins an engine.
Yeah.
That's not.
Oh, yeah.
So
that could easily be that $14,000 worth of damage. You destroy a gas.
Can we just? What I'd like to safely assume here is that this is about a girl.
Yes.
Some way, somehow, it's about a
the
girl.
rumor
right?
is Lito Shepherd slept with Jabbar Gaffney's wife, and rather than either A, just getting a divorce, or B, going and fist fighting the guy like you did in the 1940s. He destroyed his car. Those were the two options, and he went with option 3.
I would have more respect for Jabbar if he just went and manned up with Lito.
Yeah, square up.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do that, I mean, these guys are probably 40 years old.
Yeah, they got to be both in their 40s now.
Who fights in their 40s? First of all, that's just ridiculous. On the scale of dumb, vandalizing the car is even more dumb.
Right.
For sure.
Right. I mean, like I said, divorce is probably the most logical option. But,
Get out.
Yeah.
We're done. Yeah. But no, let's go vandalize a grown man's car. It just... sometimes I don't know what goes through people's heads. I really don't.
Right. So $14,000 lawsuit. I hope it was worth it for him.
It made him feel better for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And now he wishes he hadn't done it.
I should have looked this up. How many receiving yards did Jabbar Gaffney have for us?
Well, I was about to tell you. First of all, he was born in December 1980. So he is 37, about to turn 38.
Right.
And he had 447 career receptions, 5,690 yards, 24 touchdowns. Played for, you ready for this? It's a long list. Played for the Texans, the Eagles, Patriots, Broncos, Redskins, Patriots again, and then the Dolphins. So that was Jabbar Gaffney's distinguished career, was with the Redskins for 2011.
Okay, so he played with Lito then on the Eagles, too, I guess.
Well, yeah, let's see.
Lito Shepherd was definitely an Eagle. And they were also both teammates at Florida. Steve, if you really wanted to break it down, doesn't everything bad happen in Florida? It seemed like.
Yes. All these crazy, wacky stories seem to always happen in Florida. I don't know what's in the water there, or
Sewage.
if it's so humid, sewage, or if there's just bad people in Florida, or, something like that.
Snakes everywhere, alligators everywhere. It's just not a good state.
Maybe it's like too many mosquitoes, and you're getting some weird disease from the mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't hear about this stuff happening like Oklahoma.
No.
You don't have 40-year-old football players vandalizing other 40-year-old football players' cars in Wisconsin.
No. I mean, even you live in Texas, which is a crazy state in itself. This doesn't happen in Texas that often.
No, it doesn't.
Occasionally you'll have a player stab another player at the barbershop or something,
That's just routine, though. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And that's all internal.
Exactly, but this is just a crazy story, and this is another thing. I have no sympathy for these people for doing something so stupid.
I have very little sympathy for, you hope Barry Cofield gets off heroin. That's about it.
Yeah.
In that story, but he deserves to do some time for hitting a cop car, I guess. But that's it. That's the and I guess I feel a little bad for Gaffney if his wife cheated on him.
Yeah, I understand that. I feel bad for that, but his reaction to it is pretty dumb.
I feel bad
kids,
for
if
when
out there,
you are a victim. I don't feel bad for when you are an asshole.
Yeah, kids, if your wife cheats on you, don't go vandalize a car because you're going to get charged with a crime for this. And if you have to do something, just go fight the guy. But even then, you could get charged with assault and battery. So the best thing to do is just cut it off and kick her out.
Move on with your life.
Yeah, marriage advice from the Hogsty.
Right. Yeah. All right, well, let's move on from giving bad marriage advice, or maybe good marriage advice.
That's good advice.
Right.
Are you kidding me? That was solid advice.
Telling people to fight people might have been bad advice.
Well, I said, if you're going to do it, that's what you do, but you're still going to get charged with a crime.
Right, that's true.
It's still assault and battery. Just be aware. It's assault. It's not self-defense.
Right.
And there's no cheating on my wife defense. It's assault and battery, but if you're going to do it, that's the best of the two options.
Right.
That's my
it's
point.
better than $30,000 or whatever you're going to have to pay for the car.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's just more manly.
Yeah.
It's kind of wimpy to go in the dead of night and vandalize some dude's car.
Right. Like I said, it's the 1940s way of handling things.
Yeah. Well, of course, the 1940s maybe would have been to just gun him down in the street.
Yeah, maybe.
That's not what we want either.
All right, well, let's move on from, losing money on a car to losing money on some football players, Steve.
Transition.
Yeah. So let us go to a topic that you saw online, and that was something about Jordan Reed being one of the worst NFL contracts. And you wanted to kind of expand on this and just go over some of the big, bad contracts we have on the Redskins.
Yeah, this is a Sporting News article, and they listed the top 10 worst contracts in the NFL. And just spoiler alert, Joe Flacco was number one.
Shocker.
And, shocker. I mean, anybody who's paid attention to the Hogs tie, or it's just business, knows that
just
Joe Flacco's contract.
The NFL mantra for the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, always pay attention to us. Yeah. But, if you paid attention at all, you know that Joe Flacco's contract is terrible. But Jordan Reed was listed on this contract. Now, people in D.C., we love Jordan to a certain extent. We know Jordan can play, but the obvious red flag with him is that he is never available.
Right.
And so if that is the reason why his contract was listed as an awful contract, because really the nanosecond he got this contract, he hasn't played
more than half
a
his
handful of games since. Since.
Yeah.
Now, so number one question for the audience and for Alex is what do we do about this? Here's the contract. He signed a 5-year contract, 2016, $46.75 million. He had $22 million total guarantees. So his cap hit for the 2018 season is $10,143,750. His dead money is $13.4 million. That's as a pre-June 1 cut. As a post-June 1 cut, which means you split it up between this year and next year, it'd be 9.8 this year, and then the rest next year. So either way, it costs you money. It just
I mean,
less
based
of a
off
hit.
of that, I don't think you can cut him yet this year. I think you have to at least give it this year to get that cap hit down.
Yeah, now next year's cap hit in 2019, his cap hit's $9.7 million, but his dead cap is $3.6 million. So at that point, then he's cuttable. And then in a way that's going to be reasonable.
Right.
So the question really is, what do the Redskins do about this? Is a terrible contract. It's not a terrible contract from the perspective that Jordan Reed doesn't have the talent to live up to it, but he just can't be on the field.
Right.
And so what do we do about it? Do we just hang on to him? Do we cut him? Because it would be very Redskins to cut him and have him play every game for the rest of his career.
Well, I mean, it's the Brian Arakpo syndrome.
Yeah.
Anyone who's a hardcore fan of this has this inkling, I think. And I'm going to name a guy who no one else knows but you, but Flounder yelled at me years ago for saying the Redskins don't invest enough in medical facilities and they don't invest enough in keeping guys healthy. And he's like, well, how do you know that? I'm like, just look at the results.
Yeah.
It seems like no matter what, our guys get hurt just way more often, especially our big names. And they, we heard that they are investing more in the medical facility this year. Like, they did some real research into it and are going to be putting more money into it, and that's great. They need to.
Well, first of all, Alex's reference was to somebody has inhabited our comment section for years and years and years, by the way. But go ahead.
And
just
sorry,
to clear that up.
Yeah, but I just got yelled at by that guy about it. That I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm looking at numbers. But so. In terms of Reed, I don't know what you can't do anything this year, obviously, with that contract that you talked about.
You could offer to renegotiate it, which would mean extend it for a lesser cap hit, basically, and spread the love.
But
that's what you could do, but then you're stuck with him longer.
Right, you're stuck with him longer, or you're doing it and cutting him now, and that's not a good PR look. Which I also...
It's also a dumb financial move to cut him this year, too, because you're going to lose money on it. You could spread the hit and make it less painful, but you're ultimately going to lose money if you cut him this year. Plus, I mean, they don't have a replacement for him, really.
No. Sprinkle's not ready.
Old.
I mean, Davis...
Vernon Davis is old.
Yeah, he's old. Now, Davis is the reliable factor that you want.
Yeah.
And, there's something about, like, a guy like that where you're just like, he's the football player kind of mentality where he will be there for all 16 games. And he could probably do it another 3 years, but his production.
Vernon Davis never misses time. He's a total opposite of Reed.
Right.
What's great about Reed is he catches everything.
Right.
It's hard to find a guy like that. I've been over this before on this show and in writing.
His radius is amazing.
Yeah, and his catch percentage is one of the highest in the history of the NFL for a non-running back.
Right.
So it's hard to find those guys, but it's become an albatross of a contract. Mm-hmm. Because he's just not out there.
No, and
he's taking up $10 million a year.
Right, and so I don't know what you do this year. I mean, you hope he can get healthy. How many years did you say he has left after this? 2?
Yeah, well, he goes through 2021, so that would be 3.
3 more seasons. Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if he's healthy this year, give him next year. But I would basically say after that, as soon as he's missing 8 games, you got to get rid of him.
And I'll tell you what, I mean, if we kind of speculate here a little bit, if Jay Gruden should lose his job somewhere in the next couple of years, I think that's probably bad for Reed.
Yeah, I mean, Gruden.
I don't know if a new coach would. Yeah, and I don't know if a new coach would want to put up with this. And this is just
pure speculation.
Off the top, yeah, we have no idea. I think that's the biggest quandary on the team in terms of contracts. I mean, we have others that are quandaries, like Josh Norman, I think would be the next one. Norman's contract is a $75 million contract signed in 2016, 5 years, runs through 2020. So right now, his cap hit this year is almost $17 million, hair under $17 million.
Right.
And he just had... the Redskins had an out this past offseason, which they did not take. Which means he got more guaranteed money. When they say out, that means more guaranteed money is about to pop in, and that's what happened with Norman. So now his dead cap hit is $22 million this year.
So he's not going anywhere either.
No, you can't cut him. Whereas if the out would have meant they could cut him and not have that dead cap. But then it goes back down next year. His cap hit in 2019 is $14.5 million. His dead cap is $6 million. Mm-hmm. So that's Norman. I mean, I know a lot of people, you guys out there are not Josh Norman fans. You don't think he's lived up to it. I personally think he's lived up to the contract, even though he hadn't made the Pro Bowl. That's my thought.
All right. I mean, I don't know. I'm more in the. I don't think he's lived up to the kind of. I don't think corners are worth that kind of money. I know that's probably contrary to what a lot of people think. I would rather invest always in your front seven and safeties. I think corners are probably one of the more overvalued positions on defense. But that's just me.
I don't know if I'd say that over safeties. I mean, yeah, the front seven, okay, I'm with you there. But you think a safety is more valuable than a corner?
I think a great safety is way more valuable than a corner. Safety covers the whole field, man.
Yeah, but how many Sean Taylors are there? You're going Sean Taylor route, right? I mean, how many? He's a once-in-a-generation guy. You're not going to find a dude who can do that.
No, I think it's... But I think you're paying Josh Norman to be a dude like that at that salary. And
I mean, I think your point, it seems, what I think I'm hearing you say, especially when you have a cover 3, in a cover 2 system, you have 2 high safeties, which are covering half the field each, whereas a cover 3, you have a single high free safety, and if you have a guy who's good as Sean Taylor, rest in peace, he can truly cover the entire field, and so you're saying it can provide more value to the team.
Right.
I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, but I get it. I get your point. I think Norman has... frankly, I think he's been misused a little bit in D.C.
A little, yeah.
I don't think he's a guy who should be shadowing other teams' number 1 receivers, and they haven't always done that with him.
No, especially when we had Joe Barry. Barry hated doing that for some reason.
Yeah, but if you're going to pay a guy $22 million a year or $17 million a year, I think you have a right to expect him to do that. And the times when he has done that, he's done pretty well at it. Antonio Brown, when he torched us, that really wasn't. Half of that wasn't on Josh.
No, that was a lot of them putting him on Breeland's side, and Breeland didn't have any help over top that year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think they haven't really made the most efficient use of Josh Norman.
No, they haven't.
But he is over 30. He's like 30. What is he? 32.
No,
now,
I think he just turned 31.
Okay.
But he's over 30.
Oh, I have his. I forgot. I added dates of birth on my spreadsheet.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. For those of you who are out there who don't realize that, we have our rosters page on our site and our salary cap chart. I'm always adding crap to this because my chart is really big.
It's kind of absurd looking how much detail you go into.
Well, and I have more.
Right.
See on my spreadsheet, but I did add dates of birth to the website. So, and Josh is 1987. So December 1987. So he's about to turn 31. Yeah.
I thought he was around there. But anyway.
Yeah.
I can see Norman Williams. I assume is another contract that people are going to start questioning because of the age, and he's not played 16 games for a while.
Well, let's talk about Williams. Yeah. Trent Williams, his contract was 5 years, expires in 2020. Williams is in a little bit different situation than Norman and Reed both because Williams is cuttable now. I'm not saying
you're not saying we
don't
would.
jump
No.
in. I'm just saying it's technically possible because his cap it's about $13.8 million. His dead cap now is 9.4, and the gap gets wider, as we go. So I mean, they could get rid of Williams. Not that they will, but they could.
Sure.
So I'm less inclined. Plus, I mean, if we have a guy who's anyone who's a borderline Pro Bowler, it's him. So I'm less inclined to think that that's a bad contract. Just because he can perform. His health is a huge concern.
The health is good. I mean, when you talk about what is a bad contract, I don't think we necessarily have any bad contracts in that we're overpaying a Jag. That's what the Joe Flacco situation...
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Yeah, okay. Well,
but keep talking. I have one.
I mean, like the Joe Flacco situation is you are giving elite money to a guy who's just a guy. We are giving elite money to guys who perform at a high level.
Right.
But... it's always a question of health with us and age.
Yeah, with Reed, it's health. Yeah. Norman,
it's not.
Norman, you could argue it's a value.
It could be. Yeah, Norman, maybe it's a little different. He doesn't get turnovers, and that's a big pet peeve of a lot of people.
Yeah,
but Williams, it's
Trent,
age
obviously,
and health.
You're paying.
Kerrigan, I can think age is going to start being a factor now. He's over 30.
Well, let's talk about Kerrigan real fast. I mean, Ryan Kerrigan's contract, which I need to flip up here. Ryan Kerrigan's contract was a 5-year deal, expires in 2020, $57.5 million. Carrot Ryan is another guy who's cuttable now. Not that you would want to do it, but he is. It's possible. It is cap it this year, $12.45 million. His dead cap $6.4 million. And again, the gap gets wider as we go. So if something ever happened to Ryan and he fell off a cliff, they could get rid of him. So it's not a bad contract because they're not stuck with him. You know, I think if you can get out of it, I'm more okay with it.
Yeah.
If you can't get out of it, that's the problem for me. Here's the guy I think you have to. That's the serious question.
All right, so a guy who falls in what I was saying earlier, he might be just a guy getting elite money or high overpaid.
Paul Richardson. Paul Richardson.
Okay, I could see that.
Now, you know, we haven't even seen him play, and it's not fair of me to criticize him. But when I did my piece on a few months ago, right after we signed Richardson, what really strikes me is that this is not a guy who has the numbers to back up the contract.
Right.
And we're not experts, you know, on him. I watched a bunch of film on him. He has his great qualities. Don't misunderstand me, people. He may be great, and certainly the scouts know what they're doing. But if this is a guy who, if he doesn't perform, it's going to be awful fast because he's got a $40 million contract. His dead cap this year, his cap hits $4 million. His dead cap's $12.5 million in 2018. 2019, 7.5 cap hit, $9 million dead cap. It's not, and then it's finally in 2020 where his dead cap is less than his cap hit. Yeah. Now you could get rid of him in 19 if you wanted by splitting it up as a post June 1 cut, but you're still losing money overall.
Right.
That's like we just have to get rid of this guy, you know, kind of move.
Right.
So I think Paul Richardson is a guy who, if it just doesn't work, that's the one that
it becomes a bad contract.
Like
okay, that makes sense. And so like we don't have anybody though that we are for sure. You are overpaying a guy who's not worth being paid. It's more hypothetical and injury question.
Because Richardson is an open question. We haven't even seen the man play. We don't know. He could be great. We'll see.
Right.
The other one is, you know, we have to talk about, of course, is Alex Smith. You know, he has a $111 million contract, but it's really not as bad as you think. There's been a ton of criticism of the Redskins, you know, for dumping Cousins and bringing in Smith. And to those people, I just think you're absolutely out of your mind. You know, if you can get a guy who is at least as good as Kirk Cousins at a minimum, which is Smith, well, he has an $18 million cap hit, and Cousins is more like 30.
Exactly.
Okay? And the Redskins are stuck with him for 2 seasons. He's literally impossible to cut through 2019. Even through 2019, he has a $42 million dead cap number. So even if you split it up, it would still be awful. So I mean, and even in 2020, he's got a $20 million dead cap, which is slightly less than his cap hit, so you can get rid of him, but it's still a massive number to put on your books. So they may not want to do that. It's really not till 2021 that it becomes more feasible to let him go. So realistically, you're talking 3 years of Alex Smith. So you have to hope he stays healthy and performs. That's the other one that could be questionable if for some reason his health goes south.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think we have to worry about Smith for the immediate future. I mean, you know, I've said before, though, I think eventually we need to draft a young quarterback to start grooming behind him. Even though I like Kevin Hogan, I don't think he's that guy.
Kevin Hogan is not the future. He's a smart guy.
He might be the future backup, but he's not the future starter. So, yeah, Smith, that makes sense that you could see him because, again, it's only going to be your big contracts, right? You're never going to be like, oh, this guy's making $2 million. That's too much for a backup tackle or something, you know? People don't mind.
No, I mean, it's not the ideal situation, but we're talking about the roster-killing contracts.
Right.
You know, so it's really, I think we went through, and we went through this beforehand, by the way, and these are the ones that I think have the most potential. These 6 ones we named: Kerrigan, Norman, Reed, Williams, Richardson, Smith. And of those ones, I'm really only worried about Reed, Richardson, and Smith, and I'm less worried about Smith. It's just a big number, you know, but I have confidence in him.
Yeah.
I don't have confidence in Reed. In Richardson, it's just a matter of seeing him play because it has the potential
you just put
to be an awful mess.
Question marks by his name. That's all you do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe after training camp, it'll be 6 question marks, you know.
And really, if you watch Richardson, I mean, the issue with me is he drops a lot of balls.
Sure.
He's going to have one a game or so where you just go, what are you thinking, dude?
Yeah.
It's going to hit him in his hands, and he's not going to catch it. You know, but he does have kind of an all-around receiver's talent. He can run the entire roster tree, or the entire route tree, rather. So he has potential, and I think Alex Smith is going to be better able to hit him downfield than Kirk Cousins was.
Sure.
So I have confidence in him. I'm just, if it becomes he's an average or sub-average player, we're stuck with him. So that's the one that's more of a problem.
Well,
to me.
I think that leads into the next topic pretty well, and that is that we wanted to start talking about some of our training camp storylines that we're going to be looking for.
The first one that came to my mind, and we all picked one, and Alex has one. He's going to go over for his, but mine was Alex Smith, and not just Alex Smith, the player, but it's kind of a big deal to bring in a new starting quarterback. And so, to me, the biggest question on the team is how well Alex Smith integrates with the team. He's said and done everything right so far, but are we going to see the Alex Smith of 2017, or are we going to see the Alex Smith in 2005?
Right.
That's a question. And, is he going to be able to build rapport with these receivers? We just talked about Paul Richardson. He's coming in from Seattle. To me, he's a little bit of a question mark. Josh Doxson is obviously a question mark. It's time for Doxson to step up. And then Jameson Crowder is, Dr. Reliable. So if we have Alex Smith performing at a very high level, we're going to see all these guys improve, because a good quarterback who is accurate, who can read the field, who has a good deep ball, who has, is accurate, on the underneath stuff that Jay Gruden loves, that will do wonders.
Sure.
And so, to me, that's the biggest question on the team. And I have no reason to suspect that Smith can't do it. Don't misunderstand me, but it's still a question because we haven't seen it.
Well, and I don't think it's to me, the question is less can he do it. It's how different will the passing game really look versus with what it looked like with Kirk Cousins. Because for, as much as people want to rip him now, Kirk was very good at the short accuracy game. I mean, that's why Crowder looked as good as he did for the last couple of years, is that Kirk was able to hit him underneath for, 8-yard chunk, maybe 15-yard chunk there, a lot of those kind of dump-off passes that turned into good plays. The deep ball, I think, is going to be a big difference in this game now. But there's also a question of, what passes does Smith throw well, and do we have guys who catch those passes well,
Yeah. First of all, the Redskins fans are really turned on Cousins, and I get it. He was unreasonable with his contract demands.
Though, a little bit.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, I understand that. But the simple fact of the matter is, we all wanted to resign him a year ago.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. I mean, he is a good quarterback. He's a bit of a nerd, and all that stuff, and his contract stuff. I mean, I understand, but it's not like the man was a bad quarterback.
He wasn't the
He's a good
perfect player, but he was a more than serviceable quarterback.
Yeah, and you got to give both him and Jay Gruden credit for rescuing us from the doldrums of the Robert Griffin disaster. So I applaud that. Here's what I really think. I think Alex Smith is probably as good in terms of underneath, quick release West Coast offense as Cousins. Cousins has a higher completion percentage, but I think part of the reason is Cousins is a little bit more cautious than Smith. Smith is a cautious quarterback too.
Yeah, they both
He's not going to throw too many.
They're both dink and dunk guys.
Yeah, but I think that Cousins is more cautious than Smith was, so I think we're probably going to see the offense open up a little bit more. I think Smith is smarter in terms of quarterbacking than Cousins. Jay has raved about how quick Alex has picked things up, so I think you're going to see the playbook expand just a bit, and I definitely think that Smith has a better deep ball than Cousins ever did.
Oh, sure.
Cousins is not good in a deep ball. Now, we don't have Tyreek Hill.
Right.
We don't have Tyreek Hill. I understand that, but if the synergy of Richardson, Smith, Doxson builds and becomes a thing, we could be back to that 2016 elite level offense.
Yeah, where we had two 1,000-yard receivers,
Right.
and then we had Crowder underneath who got 800 yards or something like that first year.
Something like that. And so to me that's the biggest question on the team.
Absolutely, and I think it's a huge question. Also, can he throw a fade? That because we all know Jay loves the fade. So and Kurt
and we all know that
hit it
can't
quite
do it.
right.
No, never. And Jay's like that dude that it's like the kid in high school just has to date this girl, and so he just keeps asking. It never works. It never works. She always says no. Well, that was Cousins in the fade. Jay just kept calling it, and it never worked. I admire his dedication to it.
And I totally understand. Like that's what I was kind of talking about when I said, what passes does Smith throw well that our guys can catch? It's things like, can he throw the fade pass well? Can he throw a good deep ball on the sidelines? Kirk could throw it down the middle deep and make a big play. He was not good on the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, our old buddy Kean Fahey,
right,
who is now mad at us and has now completely gotten off Twitter.
Right. I saw that.
Yeah, and Kean, if you're out there listening to this, come back. We loved you, even though you're mad at us.
We don't hate you.
But no, he's mad at us, but that's okay. But my point is, Kean had a bunch of good numbers and showed that while Kirk is accurate in some, there were certain things, even underneath, his completion percentage on these underneath passes was less than some others.
His mid to deep on the right, I remember, was really noticeably bad, which was interesting.
Sucked. Yeah, and I think Smith is much better at that. And the other thing is that Alex Smith is a much better runner.
Sure.
He's one of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL, and so that's another dimension. So if it all works out, we're going to see a more wide-open offense, I think.
A lot more bootlegging,
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing I really want to see the most.
Sure.
So maybe we got to move on. What was yours?
So the thing I'm going to kind of start out watching for, to me, it's the depth at the pass rush spot. I feel like we, lost Gillette. Can Anderson and McPhee step up and, kind of provide... I know Junior didn't have a lot of numbers, but can they provide some pressure? Because what Gillette did was he provided a lot of pressure, which led to more sacks for other guys and, forced the quarterback to make some bad decisions. And Anderson and McPhee are both more run-stuffing power edge guys. So I'm kind of wondering... Can either of them step up, maybe get a couple sacks? Where will that go this year?
And you didn't mention Preston Smith.
Well, yeah, I was talking more about the depth than Smith and
Kerrigan. I think
starters.
the problem with this group in general is that we don't really have a speed rush.
No.
Because Kerrigan, Anderson, Smith, and McPhee certainly isn't. These guys are all more power rushers.
Right. Smith is probably the closest we have to a speed rusher, and it's not by much.
Yeah, but even he's not. He may be the guy we have, but that's not really his game. In terms of Pernell McPhee, this guy is sort of a career backup. Mm-hmm. He's a depth guy. I don't know if he's going to be really a difference maker. Hopefully we're not going to get to the point where he's playing a ton.
And remember, and historically he was a defensive tackle, defensive end. Now he's playing outside linebacker.
Yeah, I don't know if he's the guy we need. I think you're right to identify it as a problem, and it totally matters. Ryan Anderson was a disappointment to some. He wasn't really a disappointment to me because I didn't expect him to be a pass rusher, and I know he had some sacks at Alabama, but just watching him, he just didn't strike me as an
it's college,
elite NFL pass rusher.
It's a different situation.
Yeah, and it was Alabama, and they were playing, elite defense, playing 9 chump games a year. It's different.
Right.
So I never thought Ryan Anderson was going to be an elite pass rusher. So I think you've identified a problem correctly.
Right.
I just don't know if we really have a solution to it.
No, I don't know. I don't think there's the thing that worries me the most. I don't even think there's like an undrafted free agent on this roster who's going to blow up and shock us.
Not unless you're an Alex McAllister fan.
Yeah.
And
I like other Alexes, but that's it.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. McAllister probably believe in him, but that's about it.
Yeah,
other than that, he doesn't have fans. I'm still someday we need to get Junior Gillette on this show if we can, because I really want to know why he's not a Redskin. Because there's been all sorts of rumors. Junior himself put out there that he had received offers that he declined.
Right.
And then he put out all this. He's very active on Twitter. If you want to follow him on Twitter, it's a good follow. I don't know what his Twitter handle is, but you can find
Just Google it.
Yeah, Google
Actually,
it. But
I have it on our website somewhere. I have to update
we probably do
my list of Redskins Twitter handles, but he's on there.
Yeah, we need to do that for the next season. But my point is, at one point, then he said he was contemplating retirement. So I don't know if the Redskins what they offered him, if anything, if he declined it. It's very odd.
I think I saw that they offered him like a 2-year, $5 million or something like that.
Well, Junior said that. That's what Gillette said. So I don't know what the truth. I'm not calling him a liar. Please don't beat me up, Junior. But we don't know, and that's what he said. Who knows?
Yeah.
I think he would have brought something to this group, which is a speed rusher off the edge that really would have made a big deal in terms of depth. So I think you're exactly right.
Well, maybe that's something they need to look at next year. Yeah,
you can't fix every problem in one offseason.
No. All right, so let's talk about a big problem they didn't fix this offseason. And it's also a big storyline, and that is the fact that we kind of need to figure out something at the guard position, because we had a big hole by our own making. All we did was bring back Sean Loval, and I'm not very happy about that, Steve.
Yeah, this is our position group breakdown for this week. We need to have some like music,
beep, position group breakdown, beep, 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 something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to record that and play that back every time for one of these things. So we were dumb enough to pick guards for the 4th of July week show, which, blame me for not thinking through that quite
I don't
well
know
enough.
what. I mean, I'd have to look at the list and see what we could have done better. But oh well.
Yeah, it is what it is now. Here we are. So so we had a poll question. Let's lead with the poll on this. Well, let me get through this. The poll question this week was: left guard is one of the biggest question marks on the team. How many players will start at left guard for the Redskins this coming season? The choices were 1, Sean Laval's the man, or 2, 3, or 4, with 4 meaning it'll be disaster.
Right.
Now, I realize, like I said, we knew going into this poll that it was the 4th of July and it was guards. And so we didn't think this was going to be one of our most popular polls, and that proved right. Shout out to Rick Snyder for saving us on this by retweeting it for us. So those were the choices, Alex. What do you think the voting public out there would have voted for?
Well, I think it's going to be a disaster, so I'm probably going to say 4. But I think the public... No one thinks Laval can stay healthy, right? I mean, that's physically impossible. So I'm going to say 2.
You'd be surprised. The public did, in fact, vote for 2 by a vote of 44%.
Hey, I'm right.
27% of you out there voted for 3. 15% voted for 4. And a whole entire 14% of you do believe that Sean Laval is the man. And do believe that he's going to stay healthy all year, which I don't know what you're thinking. I'm thinking
I don't think
maybe
it's ever
what
happened in his career.
Well, I think Sean... No, he's played 2 years. I have that. I'm going to get to that. I'm thinking maybe that Sean saw this poll and asked his friends to vote for him. That's the only thing I can really think of. Maybe he was trying to gin up votes among his boys around him.
Do you ever link a player in one of these polls? Have you ever done that?
No, I intentionally don't do that. Usually when we get, when people see it, it's other writers see it and will retweet it for us, and that's what gets attention. Maybe I ought to start tagging the players in these things just to see what happens.
I think we would just get yelled at by players.
Probably so.
The best thing that could happen is a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take bad attention. Yeah. I don't mind that. It would have been great if Will Compton had listened to our show that time and told us we were stupid.
Yeah, because he basically told us that we're stupid without listening. So
yeah, just imagine if he had actually heard what we were, whatever it was we were saying. But okay, so the poll. Anyway, so the winner here was 2. Second place was 3, and then 4, and then a small 14% of you actually do think Laval is the man. We didn't have a ton of comments, which again, not entirely surprising. Yeah, not entirely surprising. Guards, 4th of July. But we had a couple. Yeah. Here's somebody who I don't recognize the name. So somebody new. He is Noobs, at the OG Noobs.
The original Noobs.
He said, I vote.
Okay.
Yeah. He said, I voted 2, but I honestly think Laval won't be coming out of the preseason as starter. The switch that was most effective with Silverback being the left, meaning Trent Williams, being the left guard with Ty outside won't happen, but I think we have some dominance in our young guys that will show up and win the spot. So I thought that was a pretty smart comment.
Okay.
Noobs is basically saying he believes in some of these guys. We're going to get to that. We're only going to go with one more here because I think we're kind of running out of time to get through all these guards.
Because it's going to be quick, guards.
Yeah. So, okay. So we'll go with Marcus, who is at Shy Marcus. He said, I don't trust him enough to make it through an entire season healthy, meaning Laval. And Marcus, you just won the contest because if you are believing in Sean Laval...
Yeah, why don't you give us those numbers you're talking about for health?
Yeah, you need to have someone else to believe in. Sean Laval, 6'3", 308 pounds, out of Arizona State. He's a 2010 was his rookie year, so he's played 8 years. In 8 years, he's had 2 seasons when he played 16 games. That was 2011, 2012 with Cleveland. Since that time, his most productive year was 2014 when he played... It was just first year in Washington, played 15 games. since that time, it's basically been a disaster.
Right.
2015, 3 games. 2017, 9 games. He did play 14 games in 2016. But if you do some quick math, that's 48 regular season games, and he's played 26 of those.
So
almost
just about half.
in 3 years.
A little over half.
Little over half, right.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No.
And on top of that, yeah, I mean, Sean has been a decent player, but it's not like the man is an all-pro even when he's healthy.
I mean, we've talked about this a lot, as just Redskins fans. You can't build the Hogs anymore. You can't do that salary-wise. You need some guys who are affordable and decent, and he's an affordable, decent player if he's healthy. So, I think that I don't want to say I hate Sean Laval. I don't want to sound like we're knocking the guy, but I just don't think you can trust him to be that 16-game starter. Obviously, Scherff is going to be solid on the other side, but
we'll get to Scherff.
We'll get to him.
I mean, I think what I can say positive about Laval, I don't hate the guy. I mean, he's a decent player. He's made a career for himself. God bless him. I will say that when he's in there, I think our run game works better.
No, yeah, that's a good point. Better run blocker.
He's a decent run blocker. When he's healthy and when he's playing, I think life is better for the Redskins. So in that respect, if you want a positive as to Laval, he's not perfect, but I think he may be the best we have in terms of run blocking. When he's healthy, the problem again is just
only have him play like 2 snaps every game in preseason, just to keep him healthy for the right.
Keep him healthy. Yeah.
That would be my approach.
Now the good news is he's only on a 1-year contract, and it's a $1.5 million contract. So if things really go to heck in a handbasket, I mean, it's fine. Brandon Scherff, obviously on the right side, 6'5", 315 out of Iowa. Clearly he's a stud, 2-time Pro Bowler. He's about to get paid
nasty player.
In a big way. Yeah, you got to figure for Scherff, you're looking at a contract somewhere between who's the guy that Minnesota or Miami just got paid this year?
Thomas or
no, but you're looking at like $15 million a year at least for Brandon Scherff. It's going to be a really big contract. If those of you who weren't aware, the Redskins picked up their 5th-year option on him, and so he is that takes him through 2019.
Right, but it also makes him one of the highest paid guys after that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and listen, I mean, he's on a rookie deal, so, I mean, it's going to go up. This is partly why the Redskins have been saving some of their cap space. I think I wrote about this, I think.
It's a smart move on their part. They need to have money to roll over for his deal. And, you kind of hope that they do sign him for a long time because, you need to have a couple maulers on every line, and that's what he is.
Yeah.
He's a mauler.
Yeah, and he is, and just as a comparison, Zach Martin's contract they just signed, 6 years, $84 million with $40 million guaranteed. So if you shoot just a hair below that, that was the Cowboys. There's somebody with the Dolphins that just signed.
Oh, okay.
And the names escape me. I'll look it up before the end of the show. But that's the type of deal where you're looking at with Scherff. Now, Scherff isn't perfect either. No,
okay? he struggles sometimes in pass blocking. He'll get beat, especially by guys who are faster. He's probably our best run blocker at this point. I mean, Trent used to be great, but the injuries I think have slowed him down a little. Scherff is
a little bit.
Scherff can get downfield and just bowl over people, though. Blocker. Still pretty well.
And this was I'd call Trent personally a better run blocker, but that's just me. But the word out of on Scherff out of college was that he had holes in his pass pro. Because remember, folks, he was originally he was a right tackle. I think everybody sort of knew he might have been a better guard, but he's
Tiny
always been known as
or something like that. That's what they said.
Well, his arms are 33 and 3/8, which is too small for a left tackle, or too short for left tackle. But he's always been known as a run blocker more than a pass blocker, and he's a great player, but that's definitely the better of the two. So I think he needs to get better at that.
Yeah, plays mean, which is what you want in a guard anyway.
Yeah. Chase Ruie, 2017, 6th-round draft pick out of Wyoming. And yes, if you read my the last thing I wrote this week about, I had Chase Ruie in there as a 3rd-year player. Sorry, I changed that in the first 5 minutes. It was a typo. That was in Jamal's piece.
Yeah.
I added a sentence to Jamal's piece and put he was a 3rd-year player. Sorry.
Right.
It was 5 o'clock in the morning. Sue me. But what's funny about Chase to me is 6'4", 310 pounds. That's a big old center, man. I mean,
he doesn't look it though. When you watch him play, he looks so much smaller than some of these guys.
Yeah, but he's a lot bigger than a lot of other centers in the past. Chase was known in college as a pretty versatile dude. He played a lot of guard. He played a lot of center. I think the Redskins saw him as a better value than Spencer Long, which is why they let Spencer go. Chase had his problems too. I mean, he had his problems in pass pro. He muffed one or two snaps, but I think he showed enough potential.
He's developed nicely,
Yeah, he's going to be our center of the future probably. And he's on he's on basically a min salary contract. So he's not perfect. He had his problems. He will get better. And he's a smart player, and he's a tough Midwestern mauler type guy.
I like a lot of what I see out of him. I would love us to finally have a center for a long term, because I can't remember the last time we had a center who was not like just some free agent we brought on that was, decent but not great.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a long time.
When was the last time we drafted a center?
A really good center.
When was the last time we drafted a center and he stuck?
Yeah. I mean, because
you're exactly right.
Who we had? What was it? Montgomery. He was
Montgomery, but we didn't draft Montgomery.
No. He was a free agent.
And incidentally, Tyler Polumbus, Tyler Polumbus was a great guy. We need to get Tyler Polumbus back on the show. Okay. Next one, Kyle Kalis, 6'4", 310 pounds, out of Michigan. 2017 undrafted free agent. Kyle Kalis was a guy who was a priority free agent coming out of college. This is a guy who some people thought would be drafted. He's a smart player. He has big-time college experience, obviously, in Michigan. Just incident. I didn't know this about him, but when I was preparing for the show, I noticed that, number one, his father played in the NFL for 8 seasons. Didn't know this. But I also saw a note here that says Kyle wants to be a WWE wrestler at some point in the future.
All right. That's fun.
Yeah, I thought that's fun. Hey. But this guy, he was a parade All-American, recruited to Ohio State and Michigan, went to Michigan. He has a big-time background.
Sure.
His thing is, he's smart. He has decent technique, not hugely athletic. And so that's the knock on Kalis. But I think if you want a guy who's going to replace Sean Laval,
you think this is the guy to look at?
Either him. Yeah, it's either him or Catalina.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are the only two other guys on the roster.
No, I've got more.
Okay, those are the two big names. I know we have undrafted guys, and
But I think Kalis is the guy who at least has, if you just look at a resume, Kalis has more of a resume than Catalina does. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but, that is Kalis. And we saw him play a little bit. He was active for 4 games with the Colts, because remember, the Redskins cut him. Catalina beat him out at the end of last training camp. He was with the Colts. The Colts waived him.
So now he's back.
And when we were going through it, we went through our injury disaster. He's back.
Tyler, so that's I mean, I will be kind of trying to watch some of these guys like Catalina and Kalis when I'm at training camp. Not that I'm, an expert like any of the guys who we used to have on our show that might have been.
Just saunter up to, saunter up to one of those guys if they're there.
Yeah. I'll bug them if I see them. But those guys, Kalis might be the more interesting option. Catalina, I don't remember if he's played at all at the NFL level yet.
Yes, he has.
Okay.
Yeah, Catalina was active for 7 games, started 2. Because remember what happened to Catalina. First of all, he's 6'6", 315.
Big guy.
Yeah. He played. He had a roundabout college experience, but he ended up at Georgia for a year after being at Rhode Island for 3 years. Excuse me, but they cut Catalina halfway through the season.
Right.
And then brought him back 5 days later when, again, that was when the injuries.
Right. Because remember, we had 500 different offensive linemen last season at some point.
Yeah. I mean, Catalina's a solid player. I mean, he was he basically started for 4 years in college. He's not that athletic either. I mean, he's running like a 5'4", 40, which, yes, he's an offensive lineman, but that's pretty slow. Even
if they were super
linemen.
Athletic, we probably wouldn't have him playing guard.
Yeah, probably not. But my point is, I don't think Catalina is uber athletic even for a guard. but he developed fairly well. I mean, he came from no expectation to a guy who was starting. Yes, it was in the middle of a disaster, but he's worth having around.
Sure.
So I think those are your two big. If you're looking for what's going to happen if Sean
let's say when
Sean Laval goes down. Yeah, it's going to be one of these two guys. Catalina won the first battle. Kalis has the best resume. One of these two guys is going to take the spot. Alex Balducci, next man up, 6'4", 310 pounds, out of Oregon. Alex has been around a little bit. He was signed as an undrafted free agent out of San Francisco in 2016. He was active for a couple games. 2016 was waived. The Jets had him for an off season, and then he came to us in September as a practice squad.
Gotcha.
So Alex is probably the next man up after those guys.
And Ari Quanzhou's on our IR, right?
Yeah, Ari Quanzhou. I didn't even mention
Yeah.
Ari Quanzhou's out for the year.
Right.
But he's a bigger. Demetrius Rainey is another guy. We'll get to him. But Alex has a little bit more better size, I think, than Rainey does. So will he make the team? Maybe. We'll see. Demetrius Rainey, 6'2", 305 pounds, a little bit shorter, a little bit squattier. Demetrius has been around for a while. 2014 undrafted free agent with the Rams. He stayed with the Rams for 3 years. And he played, and he was active for 2 whole seasons.
So Jeff Fisher liked him.
It didn't start. Started only one game, but he played. He was active for 32 games in 3 years at the Rams, and then he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars for a cup of coffee, and he came to us at the end of last season, again in the middle of the disaster. Rainey is. I'm sorry, I said he was undrafted free agent. He's a 7th round pick. Look, Rainey is squatty. He's a little bit better athlete. He ran sub 4.5. He ran sub 5 at one point in his pro day, so that's a little bit faster. But he's smallish. He's on the small side for an modern NFL.
Which blows my mind that a 6'2" guy is small for a guard, because I thought you wanted guards to be in that 6'3" range anyway.
Well, 10 years ago you'd be right, but in today's world, I mean, they're 6'4" and up.
Yeah.
So that's Demetrius Rainey. He's certainly the most experienced.
Sure.
I just think between those two, I think Balducci, just mainly because of his size, he may be better suited. The last guy, not the last guy, but the next guy up, Isaiah Williams, he's been around a little bit too. He's bounced back and forth between the Redskins, the Colts, and the Chiefs. But he's back. So,
right.
6'3", 306
Gotcha.
pounds, Isaiah Williams. What can you say? Casey Dunn, last guy, undrafted free agent, 6'4", 292 pounds. So he's a virtual beanpole compared to these other guys. He's out of Auburn. Good luck to Mr. Dunn. You have a tough road to hoe.
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, none of these guys behind, the top two are going to be world beaters. To me, that third guard, the guy who might become the starter, that is a big question mark. It's going to be an interesting one.
The starter's a question mark too.
Well, I mean, it's more of a hey, you get it by default situation, if anything.
Yeah, we'll also say that a couple of these tackles that we did, we reviewed them as tackles.
Right. Christensen,
but in an emergency, Christensen's a tackle, but
Ty.
I mean, if an emergency happens, you could see Ty play guard, maybe somebody like T.J. Clemens, perhaps could end up at guard. There's a couple of these guys that maybe could see John Kling, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, if things went really, Kling's probably too tall, but point is, this isn't real. This is sort of a fluid situation. You want to, before we call it a day, you want to see if we can predict the interior lineman roster.
I mean, it's a total roll of the dice. I'm going to say Scherff and Laval will be your 1 and 2.
How many are we going to keep, first of all?
Probably only 3. I think we keep more tackles because that's where we have the quality. And, they will kick a guy inside if they need to.
Well, are we going to keep? You think we're going to keep 8 or 9 offensive linemen as a whole?
Sorry, what?
What do you think? How many offensive linemen as a whole do you think we'll keep? I'm thinking probably 9.
Probably 9. I would say 4 tackles. Chase will be your center, so that puts me at 7. I don't know who can also play center from the backups we have, Kalis or Catalina.
That's a tough question.
I don't know who's gotten experience there.
None of the above.
Yeah. So I'm going to just be dumb and conservative and say Kalis and Catalina are the guys who get it, and one of them's going to have to learn how to play center. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, last year we kept really 3 tackles until things just went awful.
But
because we had Ty.
Now I'm just looking at the salaries. I know we're paying big money to 4 guys, right?
Well, also Jerron Christian is a 3rd-round pick, so he's going to make the roster.
Yeah.
And so he's definitely going to be on the roster. And so as far as tackles go, you're obviously Moses and Williams. Christian and Ty and Secchi are locks for the roster, and so that's 4 right off the top, and that's 4 tackles. So I don't see more than 4 tackles. And so in terms of guards, Scherff and Laval are locks, obviously.
Yeah. Chase is a lock at center.
Chase is a lock, so that's 7 locks. And so if you have to have a backup guard, certainly one of Catalina or Kalis, that's 8. It's tough to predict who of those. Catalina won the first battle. Let's go with Catalina, so that's 8. And so I think of the rest of these guys, it may be a little bit of a battle between all of them. You're talking Balducci, Dunn, Rainey, Williams, and then some of these young tackles, Tony Bergstrom, TJ Clemens, Cameron Jefferson.
Now, and here's the weird thing. I remember there's the
best of those guys.
Tackles is also getting a pretty big salary. One of those guys that might not make the roster, he was getting like $2 million a year. I can't remember who it was offhand.
Well, I mean, Timon Perez has a $1.7 million contract, but that's 3 years. Jaron Christensen, none of the rest of them really have big contracts.
No, I thought there was one guy with a big
contract. No, they're all min they're all smaller contracts. I mean, TJ Clemens has a $1.9 million cap hit. If that's what you're talking about.
That's probably what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
But
he's cuttable, though.
I can't see us keeping 5 tackles. That'd be insane.
No, but I mean, I think if one of these guys, I read all the names out because if one of them can show a little bit more versatility, I don't think the Redskins are locked into 3, 4, or 5 tackles.
I think
5 tackles is a lot.
Give us the
sure.
9 best guys you got situation.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking they may end up. So in the summary here, obviously the locks on the offensive line, generally speaking, Williams, Moses, Scherff, Laval, Ruie, those are your starters. And then you're going to have your backup, Ty and Secchi is a lock.
Right.
Absent his health. I mean, he had some health problems. So that's 6. And then one of Catalina and Kalis for sure. One of those 2 guys is a lock. That's 7. And then 2 wild cards. And I think the wild card, like I think you said, Alex, the wild card is going to be whichever of these guys is more versatile and play best between the guards and the
whoever
tackles.
Whoever can play center, whoever can be versatile, that's going to be the big thing. And, I don't want to harp on it because we're out of time, but how nuts does it drive you that we didn't draft a guard at all?
Crazy, dude. I mean, I didn't understand Jaron Christensen.
I mean, he seems like he could be a good swing tackle. That's what I understand.
And I got the logic. I mean, what Jay at the post-draft presser said, hey, we need, all our tackles are hurt. We need a tackle. And that makes sense. I get that. But that didn't mean you had to ignore guard. Pick up somebody. I mean,
there were plenty of guys in the 4th and 5th round they could have picked. You
just didn't grab anybody. I didn't understand that
That's not
at
a
all.
knock on the guys we drafted. That's just this doesn't seem like it was a good plan at guard.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't sign anybody of note in free agency, and you didn't draft anybody. And the big answer to the whole guard was to bring back the guy who's been
the problem, and not as a player, but just health.
He's been out there. Yeah, so that's a hole in the roster. There's no doubt, and it's not going to be fixed till next year unless one of these young guys, like Mr. Nuts, what was his name? The commenter, Nuts. I can't remember. Whatever that guy's name was. I mean, he had faith that some of the young guys will come around. And listen, remember we had Rick Chandler? No, Doc Walker.
Yeah.
We had Doc Walker on, and we asked him this question about guard, and he was like, somebody will step up in training camp. So maybe Doc is right.
I mean,
let's hope.
It seems to be the mentality of a lot of teams that you can just find a guy to play guard. I don't know. I don't believe it, but
well, that's a player's mentality. Mentality. It's somebody's going to step up, and maybe he's right. Maybe he's right because Doc really wasn't. We weren't going over specifics with him. We just kind of wound him up and let him talk, and that's one of the things he said.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Doc, and maybe he's right. He certainly knows more about football than we do, so maybe he's right. But I have my doubts.
I'm very nervous.
It's a problem. Yeah.
It could be a problem. All right, well, I think that does it for this week's episode. I hope everyone kind of had a good week of 4th of July, and nobody was at work, I think, because it was on a Wednesday. But now you guys got to go get back to it, and it's going to be 1,000 degrees. Wherever you are in the United States, it's going to be 1,000 degrees all week.
It's hot.
Yeah, hot.
It's hot, people.
Hot as footballs.
Yeah, there you go.
Take care, everybody. Keep checking us out on social media. Yada, yada, yada.
Blah, blah, blah.
Good night.
Or good afternoon. Or good morning. Whatever the case may be.